What's up, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome back to another edition of Tuffy Talk. Ethan Barry alongside the legend himself, Greg the Leg.
We're setting expectations
Greg,
high already.
Well, always for you. I did something fun a couple of weeks ago on our Patreon. Actually, it wasn't a couple of weeks ago. It was like recent, where I ranked my guests, and I explained there. I've really gotten into like rankings. Not just gotten into, but
No, but
I
they're
just
fun.
love the idea of it's fun to rank stuff, and it's not easy to do that in the NC State sports landscape, right? And so
Right.
we ranked the top 10, my expected, projected, however you want to label that, top 10 highest paid players of this upcoming season, school year, I guess. And we're going to take a quick look at last year. Thought about, should we do highest paid for last year? No, we said let's do something fun. Let's do we're going to do the 5 highest. We're not going to do 10. We're going to do 5 with some honorable mention of our top surplus value that basically NC State got from players last year across sports. We're going to do one from every sport, and then we're going to pick an extra name, and then we're going to have a couple honorable mentions to throw out there.
Kind of like the stock market, right? Buy low, sell high kind of thing, right?
That's right. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah. And just so other people understand surplus value is basically the gap between what you are paid and the financial output of what you produce. So if you're talking about, let's just use a quarterback, for example, right? Like, okay, if I determine that, and I'm just going to throw this out there. If you're a quarterback and you throw for 1,000 yards, I determine that's worth $1 million. Well, if I pay you $1 million and you throw for 4,000 yards, and I'm again determining that 4,000 yards is now worth $4 million, if each 1,000 yards is worth $1 million, then I got $3 million of surplus value. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, you don't want Ryan Leaf's contract plus production, is what you're telling me. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Players become less valuable the more you pay them.
Yeah.
You see that in pro sports. My Celtics are trying to trade Jaylen Brown right now, and he's on one of the biggest contracts in the NBA. So he's not as valuable as somebody else who's not as good of a player, but is making less money because, again, that allows you to spend money on other things. So hopefully
and not pay luxury taxes.
That's right. Because we know billionaires need to be cheap, right? But hopefully that explanation makes sense. Definitely let us know if you have any questions. We can definitely explain that more. But Greg, let's jump into it. What sport do you want to start with?
Well, we talked in our previous episode that football is king, so let's start football.
Let's start football. So I've got a list of 4. Do you have one for each sport?
Yeah.
Who would your guess be for football? Remember, this is last season based off of what they were paid last year.
Yeah, I think all eyes are always on the quarterback. So I think the easy one would be CJ Bailey, coming off of his freshman year, where he started, 9 games his freshman year, I want to say. And then was given the keys to the kingdom his sophomore year. And so he had a little bit of leverage to make a few extra dollars. Again, small sample size from his freshman year ish, I guess. But yeah, let's do CJ. And, I think the number, if we want to talk numbers, was probably right around $1 million-ish, give or take, a little bit there. So again, for argument's sake here, let's say he made $1.5 million last year. Again, we have nothing concrete that says that was the number, but there are always rumors out there. So based on that dollar value, give me what you think.
Yeah, well, Bailey was my answer. I was asking you to guess. I know we had discussed picking Bailey before,
a little bit, yeah.
But there are some other good names that we'll get to after here. But yeah, for me, and again, it's tough because I know we've been critical of Bailey at times, but I do think the production that you got for $1 million, $1.5 million, pretty good. Pretty good. You look at the overall numbers. He threw for 3,100 yards, 25 touchdowns, ran for 6 more, I wanna it was 6
Well,
touchdowns, so it's
Will Wilson got like 10
Will
more.
Wilson got a
So
bunch of them, right, so
yeah,
Bailey still has 31 touchdowns, right?
yeah.
He took care of the ball, that stands out.
What he has
Um,
6 interceptions,
it
7
was
interceptions.
6 over the course of the season.
Yeah,
I think you're right, 7, and they all came in 4 games, right? So,
yeah,
I think if you're looking to nitpick with Bailey here, it's the numbers were there. I don't think that's the question. Were they there in the biggest games? Not necessarily. And I think
right.
that's kind of where you look at it and say, well, is this truly the best surplus value? But again, if you look at NC State in those biggest games, specifically looking at Notre Dame and
It
Miami,
wasn't it wasn't just on him.
right? You're not pointing at one guy in those games. So yeah, it was 9 interceptions. Really? Okay.
Really? Was
Yeah,
it 9? Wow.
he threw 3 against Duke and Notre
Mhm.
Dame, 1 against ECU, 2 against Miami.
Miami. Yeah.
He was okay in the running game, right? Gave you 200 yards. Obviously, the sacks bring that number down. But again, running for 6 touchdowns when you had a guy as good as Will Wilson in short yardage situations, like again, that's pretty solid. And so to me, when you look at what quarterbacks are getting across the country, what CJ Bailey is likely getting this year, I think the production that he gave you last year is pretty solid relative to what he was played. Pretty solid.
Yeah, and to the point, right? When you have someone like CJ Bailey, you're going to look at a couple of factors because again, market value is what you're willing to pay a guy. Like that's what the market value is.
Yeah.
And how much you value his services and or like again with college sports being a free agency year to year proposition, sometimes you have to overpay in order to retain his services.
Yeah.
And that's a big factor into like these numbers that we're talking about right here. And to your point, last year I thought we got good value out of him. Um, like, were there some things that you would like to be like, you would like to see to clean up? Absolutely, and you brought on the sacks, right? Holding on to the ball too long. Sometimes not being as aggressive as he could be, taking the safe route. Um, the this year, I think it's going to look different because your weapons are going to be different. The wide receiver room right now is going to be a question heading into this year. He doesn't have the likes of Terrell Anderson and Rogers and Wesley Grimes. Um, so now the nice thing is some of these guys that he has brought in, or not he, but State has brought in for him, he has a relationship with, right? Some of these wide receivers, the
Right.
running back he played with in high school, so it's not a complete refamiliarization with that. But I'm definitely curious to see how this year's numbers are going to turn out based off of the rumors that we've heard that he got a nice pay raise, if you will.
It's gonna be a different conversation this year around CJ Bailey.
Well, his
Um,
expectations, are higher,
it's
no
different.
doubt. Yeah, when you get paid the money that again he's allegedly receiving, that output better be relative.
I don't wanna say you can't put up any duds, but you can. You can. And we'll see. We'll see. Basketball, who comes to mind there?
Oh, it's 100% Quadir Copeland. It's not
I think
even.
there's a
I mean, you could make a
yeah.
case. Mm, Paul McNeil, obviously, again, I
Mhm.
just don't. We don't know the true numbers of what they're making, so that
Right.
might be where we would end up
Well,
splitting
let me ask you
hairs.
this. If Paul
Yeah,
McNeil and Quadir Copeland made the same amount of money last year, which would you take?
I just think that Qadir gave you more on both sides of the ball than Paul did. And when I mean that is like, yes, Paul offensively has more than Qadir. Especially Qadir towards the end of the season, it got a little funky. I thought some at times Qadir pushed too hard and tried to make too many plays, and too many perfect plays, that is. But his intensity, we talked about it on the live stream the other night, his intensity, what he gave you defensively, just a team leader. He loved the fans. Even on like he would with regards to the fans, and again, I know this doesn't add quote unquote value, but for me,
Right.
it's just one of those intangibles which he can't be measured in dollars. Like he's the guy on your team, like in hockey. He's like the enforcer of a hockey team. You love him when he's on your team and you hate him when he's not. But and we saw that, right? Like we hated him when he was with Syracuse and we
Mhm.
absolutely loved him when he was at NC State. And again, I don't think you can put a dollar value on that, but it just it's for me if you're looking for a slight difference in ranking them, I think that's maybe why I would give the edge to Kadir.
Yeah, I do think Quadir was just a little more valuable. Like, it was hard to imagine what NC State would have looked like without Quadir Copeland last year.
Well, let me throw this at you and let me get your response. Did you expect the output from him, number 1? And number
No,
2, did we even expect him to be part of the starting 5 when the
I
roster was
didn't.
being built?
I did not. And to be fair, I didn't expect that with McNeil either.
No,
That's why
and
I
that's
think
fair.
these 2 guys, are so similar. I would lean Copeland here. I think he got paid a little less than McNeil, which I think we're kind of probably splitting hairs there.
Mhm.
But I do think he made a little less, which if you're saying, "Hey, they were equal players," that would end up being the difference in surplus value, right? Now, I
Well,
again,
here's
if
another thing I could let me throw this at you, and again, apples to oranges slightly because they're different years. Kadir Copeland didn't get drafted. I'm pretty sure Paul McNeil will.
maybe,
I
but
mean
what
I mean, if
happens
he
if the
has
shooting takes a step back?
yeah, no, that's the problem, right? Because that's his calling
Yeah.
card.
I think he's gotta show a little more, I think defensively, right? I
100%.
think certainly we'll be keeping an eye on that end this year.
Yeah.
Um, I I do lean Copeland just because I don't know what it would have looked like without Copeland. Without
Yeah.
McNeil, like, I think you could replace what McNeil gave you.
Yeah, I think
Maybe
because
not to his
Abel
level.
yeah, but
Yeah,
Abel
with
probably
A
could have done
Solomon,
yeah,
in terms of spacing the floor, like, would it have been as good? No, but would it have been like 80% of it?
yeah,
Yeah, probably. Trey
close, yeah,
Holloman wasn't doing what Quadir Copeland was doing. Matt Abel was
n
not doing what Quadir Copeland was doing.
correct.
Nobody was.
No.
Nobody was. I mean, that's why he had a 28% usage rate, a 42% assist rate. I mean, the next highest assist rate on the team was 17% with Darion Williams. The next highest usage rate was Darion Williams at 23.7%. So he was just head and shoulders above everybody else in terms of having the ball in his hands, creating all that good stuff. I think he was the heartbeat, I guess. Is that the right word? Like the
100% was the heart and
fire on
soul,
this
heartbeat.
team? Yeah.
Yeah,
Heart and soul, yeah.
yeah.
And
Glue
so
guy, whatever cute word you
right,
wanna use there. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
I think from a numbers perspective, not a big gap here. Really not a big gap. So I
no,
do think you're splitting hairs. I think they both deserve to be in this conversation, but I do lean Kadir for those reasons.
yeah,
Paul McNeil, um, 1B here, right? Like if you
yeah,
were to make like if we were to expand this list, he's right there. And again, we're gonna talk
sure.
some honorable mention in a little bit. To me, he's not even honorable mention. He deserves to be in this conversation with Kadir Copeland. But again, similar to CJ Bailey, we talked about who's gonna be the highest paid players this year. Guess who the list starts with at NC State this year? And,
Yeah,
not hard to
CJ
guess,
and
right?
yeah, yeah. And if I had to
So
guess, the numbers are pretty similar.
you think? I
Yeah,
would
I've
push
heard
I
some
would push
things,
back. You've heard okay.
but
I would
I
always
also heard some things about and we'll talk about it off air, but the numbers aren't very far apart. I think they're less than a half million to 3/4 of a million difference.
okay. I just wonder, football has more money than basketball,
Yeah,
and so I wonder if that sort like, I would guess their percentages of what they're getting is probably very
yeah.
close, but,
If n
if
I would
football has 15 and basketball has 10, like,
yeah. I think the percentage is probably higher with McNeil than it is CJ. Again, don't ask me to do public math because we've had this conversation, but it's pretty
yeah.
close.
It's pretty close regard and clearly the 2 highest paid guys. I mean, not even a debate. Nobody else is even in the same universe. So,
No.
different conversations about both of those guys this year. Fun stories last year,
But
different
they're gonna be
conversation.
asked a lot of this year.
Yeah. Let's women's basketball. I do think we gotta throw women's basketball here. I mean, these guys are not making chump change.
No.
They're being compensated very nicely, I
Yeah.
would say. Is it as nicely as UConn? Is it as nicely as LSU? No.
No.
But we know that NC
UCLA.
State
Yeah.
UCLA, yeah. We know NC State allotted $1,000,000 out of their revenue share, their 20.5 million. to women's basketball. And I think I'm assuming there was probably more, not a ton more, but some more in terms of NIL. Uh, who do you have your eye on there? This is a tough one. This is a tough one for me.
Yeah. I think it's Camille Pierre. I do. Um, she didn't get a whole lot from what I understand last year. Um, but the production, and again, much like we talked about Quadir, if you don't have Camille Pierre, and I don't know if this is even a hot take, but without Camille Pierre, this is not an NCAA tournament team.
You don't think so?
I don't.
I think with the way they use Trigger, I would agree with you.
But maybe they use Trigger differently.
But maybe they use Trigger differently without Pierre.
Yeah, but again, I mean, who you rolling out there in Pierre's spot? Maddie Cox. No offense to Maddie Cox, but
Matty
it's not
Cox is
Camille
watching
Pierre.
this like, "Wait, what did I
Yeah,
do?"
no. Why am I catching strays from these
Right.
knuckleheads? No, and they're just different players. That's where I'm going with it. Like, that they're both tall. That's where the
Right.
comparisons stop.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and they're both
I'm
women.
with you. Yeah. I kinda wanna go Trigger here, but I think the circumstances where NC State landed Camille Pierre,
Yeah,
they landed her for less money than she would have gotten on the open
on
market.
market value.
And again,
Agreed.
another player who this year, it's a different conversation.
Mhm. Yeah.
And Trigger, look, I know like all the points per game weren't there. Her usage rate was
You gotta touch the ball to
17%.
score a lot of times.
You gotta touch
That's
the ball
kinda
to
how
score.
it works.
Usually.
Usually, yeah.
Um, so in terms of efficiency, I think Trigger was probably NC State's best value, but because they got Camille Pierre under um, abnormal circumstances, I guess, right?
That was
After the
definitely
portal had
abnormal.
closed,
We didn't even
yeah,
know she was there. Yeah, she just showed up and said, "Hey, I'm here to play basketball."
I'm sure Westmore
Yeah.
passed her on campus and was like, "Wait, who are you?"
"Hey, don't you play basketball?"
Right.
Yeah,
Um, so for that reason, yeah, I think State got her at a discount, and so I think that makes the most sense. Obviously Zoe Brooks was I assume the highest paid.
yeah.
Um, again, good year, your best player. Excited to see what she can do in year 4,
She
but
just doesn't shoot it well enough for me. That's my only complaint about Zoe
yeah, it
Brooks.
doesn't shoot well, and I just don't think she did enough to say, yeah, you're getting. Again, it's hard when you're paid as the highest player. It's hard to be on this list. It's hard to be on this list.
You have to be goatish. Like, you have to, like,
I
be
mean,
the best. It's hard.
yeah,
It's, a
it's
lot a
very
lot is
hard.
put on you. And she plays 39 minutes a game, sometimes damn near all 40 minutes. She gives you everything she has. And again, this is not a knock. We're just it's a value thing. And if she shot it just a little bit more, gave me a few more points, I would have no problem putting her as the person for women's basketball. But it's just not quite there to the point that you made about Camille Pierre definitely getting her below market value.
All right, this is our wheelhouse now, Greg.
Let's do it.
Baseball.
Baseball. I
Let's cross some names off.
Yeah.
Jacob Duden and Ryan Marone.
Yeah.
Not on the list
Not on
because of
this
injury, but also
injury.
because
Yeah.
yeah, but also like again, highest paid guys on the roster theoretically.
Yeah.
Now if they stay healthy, like talk about if they're your highest paid, can it be possible? I think you can make the case that if those guys go on a run and they're there in the postseason,
Yeah.
you end up in Omaha. I think that's a scenario where you would use this because still underpaid relative to market value. I think probably most guys on NC
100%.
State's roster were,
100%. I
and
know for
so
a I was gonna say I know for a fact that they had offers out there from SEC schools that would have doubled and tripled what they made at NC State. So 100%
yeah,
below market value, but because of the injuries, I just don't think you can put them on
right.
this list.
Anybody else you want to cross off?
Um, I mean, just because,
I got one more
again,
guy to cross off.
yeah, Ty Head, I'm sure is who you're thinking about,
Oh,
or
I wasn't gonna
Luke
go tight
Nixon.
head.
Luke Nixon.
No, I wasn't gonna go Luke Nixon.
I'm running out of people. Mikey Ryan.
Mikey Ryan.
Yeah, yeah.
I think probably paid more than I think people realize. Is that
Yes,
a accurate assumption? Okay.
fairly accurate. Yes.
Um, yeah, that would be my pushback there. For had a good year, no doubt.
And again,
Um,
if he doesn't get injured, I think this conversation looks differently as well, because he was just catching his groove when he got injured.
yeah, yeah, and I also wonder with what he had done previously. I think he was compensated very nicely,
Mm-hmm.
considering he basically had no track record coming in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but
You're
again, that
definitely,
doesn't really.
yeah, you were
It
definitely playing
doesn't.
the futures market with him, right?
And they play the it played out very nicely for NC State.
It
Round of
did.
applause for NC State for how they
Yep.
handled that situation. I know I was the first guy to be like, "Hey, I don't know about this,"
You were,
and
you were.
there were some ups and downs, but you got to feel great about Mikey Ryan headed into
You and
2027.
James Henderson went around on this a couple of times that I remember listening to. So, um, so
All
I
right, so
think
who does
James
that
got it
leave?
right. I think
Yeah,
it's the guy that came out of nowhere. If you're a casual NC State baseball fan, even myself is a little bit more hardcore. I wasn't able to catch him in fall ball last year, but he was all the talk, and you kept hearing this name, and you're like, really? And then I saw him, and then I'm like, that's gonna be our guy right there, that guy, and that's Mr. Rhett Johnson. And damn, if Rhett Johnson wasn't the man this year.
yeah, yeah. A higher profile guy. I think in terms of his recruitment
Yeah,
than you would expect. Looking
yeah,
at him, looking at his
yes,
profile,
yeah,
had some real options, right?
did
Mississippi State, Arkansas, um,
Vandy.
the creme de la creme of college baseball. Um,
Yep.
I'm not I can't sit here and tell you I know how much Rhett Johnson got paid. I don't know if you can. I can't imagine a freshman outfielder who doesn't hit for power got paid very much. And maybe if Mississippi State and Arkansas, like again, I just don't know how much those incoming guys are really getting. We know that that's not something Elliott Avent really prioritized. Will that change under Chris Hart? I'm sure you still want to have the foundation of your program be the same, but you'd also like to have a little more money to play with. And so, um, I don't know how much he had. I just assume it wasn't very much. Um, and I
Not
think with the
enough
year he put up,
compared to what he
yeah,
put up, like you're getting ready to
yeah,
say.
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, And so, yeah, I think it's Rhett Johnson. I actually, the more I think about it, I think there's another guy who's actually right there with him, and maybe even uh, um,
Is his name
a
Sherman
better
Johnson?
option. His name's not Sherman Johnson,
Okay.
but he crossed my mind as well.
Yeah. Are you I'm just thinking of
Luke Nixon,
production. Was that Nixon?
Luke Nixon. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what
he was
I was ready
arguably
to say.
NC State's best player this year. I think between him and Ty Head, I think it was one of those two.
Yeah.
And I think Ty Head his profile likely got paid a little bit more. I
Yeah.
also Nixon was better in ACC play, and
Yeah.
so when you're looking at, okay, overall numbers, pretty similar, but
Yeah, but
Nixon
when
was
it
better in
matters,
ACC play,
yeah, when it
right?
matters, the competition's better.
So, man, I wonder if I know we had talked, hey, we're gonna pick Rhett here. I kind of think it's Luke Nixon. I mean,
Yeah.
Luke Nixon was worth almost half a win more than Rhett Johnson, according to Synergy.
Yeah, the other part is, since we don't know the true value, like what they really got
Yeah,
paid,
yeah, for
it's a
sure.
guess. So I don't think you can necessarily go, or excuse me, be wrong in either direction that you went with this. Um, I will say that Luke Nixon is flashier than Rhett Johnson. Rhett Johnson just is a his dad's gonna shoot me if he listens to this, and and I say he's just a ball player because Joe, love you, Joe. Joe hates when people call Rhett just a ball player. That's the easy. He's just a ball player, like.
Yeah.
Um, but
the stereotypes get thrown to him, right? He's a dirt
it
dog, the
does.
coach's son, all those things.
Yeah, he's
But to me, Luke
gritty.
Nixon's the same way. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
gritty. Yeah.
Yeah.
First one in, last one out, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly.
I think that stuff applies to Nixon though. I do. Like,
It does. It does.
you know, and
And again,
but
that's I think it's easier with Luke because again, his lineage with, his
yeah,
brother and then his dad, he just grew up around baseball. Not to say that Rhett didn't grow up around baseball. That's not the comparison that I'm making here. Um, but it just it just looks different off of each of those players. I think too that Luke hits for a little bit more pop, and
yeah,
and that kind of chicks dig the long ball, if you will. Um,
including me.
are you calling yourself a chick?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying I dig the long ball.
I know you do, but
I
yes,
the other thing too, I wonder if because of Nixon's profile, his dad's an MLB or like I
yeah,
don't know that NIL is as big of a deal there for some of those other and again
Mhm.
NIL is not like we're talking about market value here, and NC
Right,
State is playing or did play last year below market value in general. Pretty much everybody
hmm
on the roster,
everywhere,
most
yeah,
guys, yeah.
yeah. We're just one
And
of
so
those
I just
programs.
wonder if Luke Nixon was a little bit lower than the other guys on the team because of his situation where it's just like his dad's an MLB guy.
Yeah,
Like you
and look,
compare him to Ty Head or Chris McHugh, right? Like, is he making
yeah.
as much as those guys? Probably not.
Probably not. And sometimes it's not look, money is nice, but sometimes it's not the end all be all. And we saw that with Dude and Marone. There were opportunities to go make more money, but they said, "Hey, we started this thing, we wanted to finish it." And some guys are just like that,
Yeah.
they're okay. But I don't think either Rhett or Luke is the wrong answer or the right answer for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. What honorable mentions across sports stick out to you? Anybody we didn't talk about that you're like, we got to talk about this guy.
Isaac Trumbull. I know we talked about him in our
Yeah.
moments. When you win a national
Donovan Phillip.
championship,
Yeah.
yeah, when you win a national championship, and those sports probably aren't getting much of anything. Um, yeah, again, if you're getting paid zero and win championships, you're getting paid minimal and winning championships. You're definitely exceeding the value. And yeah, you can mention a couple of. You mentioned Donovan, um, the defender that was like the defender of the year. I can't remember his name, and I apologize, but he went really high in the MLS draft.
Yeah.
Kind of had like a foreign name, but
I think those guys are tough just because what's their market value, you know? But
well,
certainly NC State got great return on investment there.
well, both of those guys were number one draft picks in the MLS,
True.
respectively. Both of those
Yeah.
guys. So that must mean you're pretty good? Question mark.
Yeah. Theoretically, right?
Yeah.
A couple other guys I wanted to throw out, Devon Marshall,
Yeah.
Hollywood Smothers,
Yeah.
Terrell Anderson, probably my favorite pick on the football side.
Yeah. I think that's an
Um,
easy one too, right? If it wasn't CJ, Terrell would have been high up. I mean, he just got paid like nobody's business to go to USC.
right.
Um, he was very super massively productive at NC State. Probably, maybe not statistically, but probably overall, I think he was your best wide receiver last year. I don't even think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
maybe a hot take.
No,
I know Noah had his
easily.
moments, but again, the usage rate for Noah wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
Which that always
Yeah.
like in his 2 years, we can save that for another podcast, but I think that's gonna be one where we look back and go,
Don't open up old wounds, man. I'm healing,
I
Greg,
know,
please.
I know. Well, especially if
Um,
James were ever listen to this, because I know he
uh,
loved Noah. He was the
uh,
president of the Noah Rogers fan club.
yeah, Smothers, Fordham. I think those guys were compensated very
Fordham,
nicely, I would
yeah,
say.
Fordham, but Fordham
Um,
like led the country in tackles.
he did, yeah. I would also throw Sloan and Harsh out there. Like State landed those guys
Definitely,
late in the process. Now, I don't know that their production got up to a level where you're like, okay, this is a ton of surplus value.
but I don't think
But
they
I,
got
I
paid a lot though.
exactly. So I think State did a really nice job there, getting a lot of bang for your buck. Just wasn't necessarily at the level of
Yeah,
a Terrell Anderson, who if I were ranking these guys, it would go Bailey, Anderson, Marshall.
yeah, yeah. I would
And
agree
then
with that
everybody else
statement.
kind of falls in afterwards. Basketball, the other guy I would throw out there is Vanell and Lubin. Obviously, we talked about McNeil. To me, that's a
Yeah,
clear top three. I think when you're looking at centers this year, we talked about it. your centers are just crazy expensive.
Mhm.
Getting Van Allen Lubin for, let's
It
just say
was
somewhere around
reasonable.
$1,000,000. Yeah.
It was
Like,
reasonable.
the production you got, like, if you were paying Van Allen Lubin half of what you're paying Kyle Evans, like, that's pretty good.
And Lubin's
That's
not even
pretty
a true
good.
center. Like, if you could have put him at power forward and Evans at center, man, that would have been something to
Yeah.
watch. But, every year it's gonna look different, and we just
Yeah.
but yeah, no, great value for Lubin. And he was a guy that, had multiple stops at multiple places and seemed to get better each place he went.
Yeah. Women's basketball, sorry guys, I don't have, like, an honor. I guess Trigger would be my honorable mention.
Yeah.
Um, I
Maybe
don't think
Zam
Sam Jones.
Jones. Maybe. I mean, that's a stretch for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'm guessing she was probably the second highest paid player
second or third.
be behind Brooks,
Yeah.
her and Trigger, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and then baseball, I think you hit the nail on the head with, Sherman Johnson. I think
Yeah.
that's a guy you added late in the process. I can't imagine,
JUCO
that NC State
transfer.
had
Yeah.
to break the bank for that one. Now, they'll he was committed to Arkansas previously, but the year he came in and had for you, again, similar to Mikey Ryan, up and down, but down the stretch, he
Mhm.
was your best hitter. I mean, the last month, 6 weeks,
Yeah.
he was carrying the offense. Had a really, really nice year. 2.5 wins on synergy above replacement. So, again, not quite at Luke Nixon or Rhett Johnson's level, but again, in another year, I think you're probably talking about Sherman Johnson in that conversation.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, this was fun. I
This was
like
fun.
these, like,
Yeah.
yeah, just doing things a little different, a little outside of the box, not your normal conversation.
Yeah, let's wrap. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure like, share, subscribe wherever you guys listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, MySpace. Greg, that's for you.
No, I still have
Um,
it. Yep. Yep.
but
Yep.
yeah,
You're my
appreciate you
you're my
guys.
top 3.
I'm your top 3.
You don't even know about that, do you?
No, I don't. I don't.
Yeah, see. If you're gonna come with a MySpace joke, you better be ready.
Apologies. I'll be
Get us
ready
out of
next
here.
time.
Get us out of here.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to check back in. We'll be back live on Monday night. Stay tuned to the Patreon 3 times a week. And again, like, share, and subscribe.